Welcome to the only Christmas video where the drama isn't about gifts, travel, or burnt ham. It's about neighbors waging full-scale holiday warfare. These are 69 Christmas complaints so extreme, so petty, and so wildly unnecessary that you'll start questioning how any neighborhood in America survives December. Lights, lawsuits, emotional support poodles. It's all here. Let's unwrap the madness. 1. A woman in suburban Ohio called the police, yes, the actual police, because her neighbor turned on his Christmas lights on November 1st. She claimed the blinking red and green lights were inducing a migraine and violated her unwritten right to a peaceful autumn season. The dispatcher had to politely explain that being festive before Thanksgiving isn't a criminal offense, even if it is annoying. Imagine wasting tax dollars just because you hate seeing joy before the turkey is carved. 2. A resident in a strict gated community received a cease and desist letter regarding his army of 45 inflatable snowmen. The complaint wasn't about the aesthetics or the crowding, it was about the electricity hum. The neighbor claimed the collective whirring of 45 air compressors sounded like a commercial jet idling on the lawn, preventing his prize-winning poodles from sleeping. The homeowner's solution? He added a 46 snowman holding a sign that just said, "Sorry." 3. One homeowner decided to spice up the traditional nativity scene by replacing the baby Jesus with a baby Yoda and the three wise men with imperial stormtroopers. A highly offended neighbor wrote a 3-page letter to the local paper calling it blasphemous space propaganda. She demanded the HOA intervene to restore biblical accuracy immediately. The board ruled that since there are no specific bylaws prohibiting intergalactic saviors, the force would remain with the display. 4. Living next to a Christmas enthusiast is tough, but living next to a synchronized light show is a nightmare. A family in Texas set their lights to flash in time with "All I Want for Christmas Is You" on a loop from 5 p.m. to midnight. The next-door neighbor didn't complain about the lights. He filed a noise complaint specifically about Mariah Carey's high notes penetrating his double-paned windows. He told the cops he was one high note away from snapping the power lines. 5. Sometimes it is just an honest mistake, or so they say. A grandmother in Arizona wrapped her tall, slender cactus in red lights and put 2 round bushy shrubs at the bottom in green lights. The result looked incredibly phallic. The HOA received 12 complaints in one night about the obscene glowing anatomy on the front lawn. Poor grandma had no idea why people were slowing down to take photos until her grandson finally explained why her decoration was rated R. 6. A man in New Jersey built a life-sized, hyper-realistic Grinch stealing a string of lights from his own roof. It was so convincing that a concerned neighbor called 911 to report a burglary in progress. She told the operator a green-skinned man was climbing the gutter. When the police arrived, they found a plastic mannequin and a very confused homeowner. The neighbor was furious, not at her mistake, but that the decoration was too realistic for a decent neighborhood. 7. This is petty on a professional level. One guy spent weeks rigging thousands of lights, animatronics, and a fake snow machine. The guy next door simply took a piece of plywood, spray-painted the word "ditto" on it, and pointed an arrow at the masterpiece. The hard-working neighbor actually filed a complaint with the city for theft of visual property and parasitic decorating. He claimed the ditto sign was mocking his labor. Spoiler alert, the lazy guy won the neighborhood contest. 8. Those laser light projectors are convenient, but aim matters. A woman in a townhouse complex complained that her neighbor's festive green and red laser dots were shining directly into her living room windows, driving her cats absolutely insane. She claimed her living room had turned into a feline war zone, with cats launching themselves at her expensive curtains to catch the red dots. She demanded the neighbor pay for the shredded drapes or turn off the lasers. 9. Disposing of the Christmas tree is a chore, but one resident in a condo association got a fine for putting his tree on the curb on December 26th. The complaint, filed by the floor monitor, stated that seeing a dead tree the day after Christmas was emotionally distressing. and ruined the lingering holiday spirit for the rest of the building. Apparently, there is a mandatory mourning period for festive evergreens, and throwing it out too soon makes you a heartless monster. 10. An Ohio man decided to combine Halloween and Christmas by creating a zombie nativity scene. We are talking undead wise men and a very scary manger. The local church group was obviously horrified, but the specific complaint to the city was about zoning laws. They tried to argue that a zombie structure constituted a haunted house attraction in a residential zone without a permit. The city inspector took one look, laughed, and said, as long as the zombies were not charging admission, they could stay. 11. A realistic dummy of Santa Claus hanging by his fingertips from the roof gutter caused absolute chaos in one neighborhood. A concerned passerby called the fire department, thinking an actual elderly man was about to fall to his death. The fire truck arrived with sirens blazing, only to rescue a stuffed suit. The neighbor who called the 911 dispatcher tried to bill the homeowner for the emotional trauma of watching Santa almost die, claiming it was a heart attack waiting to happen. 12. One prankster placed small piles of chocolate-covered raisins under his plastic reindeer display to look like droppings. A neighbor complained to the city health department, claiming it was a biohazard attracting rats and flies. The health inspector actually had to come out to the property, poke the fake feces with a stick, and confirm it was just high-quality confectionery before closing the case. The neighbor was furious that the poop was allowed to stay. 13. Following a modern trend, a family hung their Christmas tree upside down from the living room ceiling. A neighbor saw it through the window and filed a formal complaint with the community board, accusing them of practicing witchcraft and inverting traditional values. She demanded they flip the tree right side up or move out of the neighborhood before they cursed the entire cul-de-sac with their inverted pine. 14. A guy played a techno remix of Jingle Bells on outdoor speakers every evening. The bass was shaking the neighbor's fine china next door. The written complaint stated that Christmas is about peace, not a rave, and that the constant thumping was making her goldfish anxious. The police measured the decibels and found it was technically legal, but the officer agreed that the techno beat was undeniably tragic and asked him to turn it down. 15. Inflatables are a common enemy in windy areas. A massive 20-foot Frosty the Snowman kept blowing over in the wind, landing face-first across the neighbor's driveway. The neighbor claimed he was trapped in his house by the giant nylon snow body every time a gust hit. He threatened to pop Frosty with a kitchen knife if the snowman trespassed one more time, sparking a feud that lasted until January. 16. There is a serious war between warm white and cool white LED lights. One perfectionist neighbor sent a passive-aggressive letter to the house across the street because they mixed the two tones on the same bush. She claimed the clashing color temperatures were visually offensive and ruined the aesthetic cohesion of the street. She actually included a coupon for the hardware store so they could buy matching bulbs and stop embarrassing the block. 17. A group of enthusiastic carolers went door to door, which is usually seen as sweet. However, one resident called the cops for soliciting without a permit and disturbing the peace. He claimed that just because the noise was festive did not mean he wanted strangers screaming Silent Night at his front door while he was trying to watch football. The police politely told him that singing isn't a crime unless they are asking for money. 18. Squirrels chewed through a homeowner's expensive light display, causing a short circuit. Instead of blaming nature, the homeowner blamed his neighbor's bird feeder for attracting the vandals. He demanded the neighbor pay for the damaged strings of lights, arguing that the birdseed was essentially a written invitation for rodents to come destroy his holiday cheer. The neighbor suggested he buy some squirrel repellent and slammed the door. 19. A woman put up a large glowing sign that simply said, "Happy Holidays." Her neighbor, who was strictly traditional, filed a complaint with the HOA stating the sign was a war on Christmas and demanded it be changed to Merry Christmas immediately. The board reviewed the bylaws and found that unless the sign contained profanity or hate speech, she could wish the neighborhood whatever holiday greeting she wanted, much to the neighbor's dismay. 20. Flashing lights can be annoying, but this complaint was incredibly specific. A neighbor complained that the strobe light on a plastic reindeer's nose was flashing at a frequency that interfered with his garage door opener. He claimed every time Rudolph blinked, his garage door would randomly open or close, exposing his tools to potential thieves. He asked for the reindeer's nose to be surgically removed or unplugged to secure his property. 21. Taking decorations down is just as controversial as putting them up. A family left their door wreath up until March because they were busy. A neighbor started sneaking onto their porch at night to remove one pine cone or bauble at a time, trying to gaslight them into thinking the wreath was decomposing naturally. The homeowner caught him on a security camera and posted the video online titled, "The Grinch of March." 22. A homeowner rented an industrial snow machine to create a winter wonderland in Florida. The problem was the wind direction. The fake soapy snow blanketed the neighbor's pristine convertible, ruining the wax job and leaving a sticky residue. The neighbor sued for damages, claiming he did not sign up to have his sports car participate in a blizzard while it was 70 degrees outside. 23. One man covered his entire roof in mirror finish foil to reflect his lights and double the brightness. It worked too well. The neighbor across the street complained that the reflection was beaming a concentrated ray of light directly into his bedroom like a laser weapon. He said he was getting a sunburn while trying to sleep and demanded the tinfoil roof be dismantled immediately before he went blind. 24. A motion-activated singing. Santa placed right next to the sidewalk became the bane of one neighborhood's existence. Every time someone walked past, the 5-foot plastic figure would violently gyrate and blast, "Rockin' Around the Christmas Tree." A neighbor with a nervous dog filed a noise complaint, stating that the demonic sensor was triggering her golden retriever's anxiety and making him afraid to go outside to do his business. She demanded the sensor be taped over or Santa be silenced permanently. 25. Trash day after Christmas is usually a mess, but one neighbor took issue with these specific boxes on the curb. She complained to the city that her neighbor's disposal of boxes for a 70-inch TV and a PS5 was reckless advertising. She argued that displaying expensive empty boxes was an open invitation to burglars that endangered the entire street. She actually wanted the city to fine him for not breaking down his cardboard properly to hide his wealth. 26. A creative homeowner decided to project classic holiday movies onto the side of his house for the neighborhood kids to enjoy. The problem was that the image bled over onto the neighbor's white siding next door. That neighbor filed a lawsuit for light trespassing, claiming that he didn't consent to having Will Ferrell's giant face from the movie Elf plastered across his bedroom wall while he was trying to sleep. He called it forced entertainment and demanded rental fees for his wall space. 27. We all love the smell of baking cookies, but pumping it outside is another story. A house rigged a machine to pump artificial gingerbread scent into the yard to enhance the experience. The neighbor 2 doors down filed a complaint with the environmental agency, claiming the chemical fog was triggering her asthma and making her constantly hungry, which violated her diet. She literally listed unwanted caloric temptation as one of the grievances in her formal letter to the board. 28. One man decided to celebrate Festivus, the holiday from Seinfeld, by erecting a plain, unadorned aluminum pole in his front yard. The HOA was not amused. A neighbor complained that the pole looked like industrial debris or a piece of sewer piping sticking out of the ground. The homeowner argued it was a recognized religious symbol, leading to a hilarious standoff where the board had to debate whether an aluminum pole constituted a holiday decoration or just garbage. 29. Sometimes the complaint isn't about too much decoration, but the wrong kind of realism. A father dressed up as Santa to surprise his kids, but afterwards he was seen on his front porch smoking a cigarette and drinking a beer with his beard pulled down. A concerned mother across the street called the police for public intoxication and character defamation. She claimed seeing Santa chain smoking ruined the magic for her 6-year-old who happened to be looking out the window. 30. In rural areas, hunting season often overlaps with Christmas, leading to a gruesome display. A hunter hung a freshly dressed deer carcass in his garage to cure, right next to his glowing plastic reindeer display. The visual contrast traumatized the vegan family next door. They filed a complaint calling it murder on display and said their children were confused about why Rudolph's friend was skinless and hanging from a hook. The police said it was gross but legal. 31. A playful homeowner hung a sprig of mistletoe from a tree branch that overhung the public sidewalk. It seemed innocent enough until a neighbor complained to the city council about state-sanctioned sexual harassment. She argued that the plant created a zone of forced intimacy, and she felt uncomfortable walking underneath it without a partner. She demanded the city arborist come and remove the parasitic plant immediately to restore the neutrality of the footpath. 32. Snowblowers are the weapons of choice in suburban winter wars. After a heavy blizzard, one man cleared his driveway by blowing all the snow directly onto his neighbor's freshly shoveled walk. The neighbor retaliated by blowing it back. This escalated until the police were called. The neighbor filed a complaint for property damage by frozen water, claiming the extra snow blocked his car and caused him to miss work. They were both told to grow up and aim the chutes at their own lawns. 33. A homeowner with a love for technology bought a fleet of 20 drones to perform a synchronized light show above his house. On the first night, a software glitch caused 3 of the drones to crash land into the neighbor's empty swimming pool. The neighbor didn't return them. Instead, he held them hostage and filed a complaint for aerial bombardment. He told the drone pilot he could have his flying robots back when he paid a landing fee for utilizing his pool deck. 34. You have heard of Elf on the Shelf, but one house did Elf in the Window. They set up life-sized elves in their front window, acting out different scenes every day. One morning, the elves were posed playing poker with beer bottles and cigars. A pearl-clutching neighbor wrote a furious email to the community listserv, claiming the display was promoting gambling and substance abuse to minors. She demanded the elves return to making toys or be removed from public view. 35. Blue lights are pretty, but apparently they can be confusing. A man decorated his entire house exclusively in blue LED lights to celebrate Hanukkah. A neighbor, who apparently had never seen a Kmart blue light special, complained to the HOA that the house looked like a police landing strip. She claimed that every time she drove by, she tapped her brakes thinking there was an emergency vehicle ahead. She requested he add some white lights to dilute the law enforcement vibe. 36. A woman covered her lawn in biodegradable glitter to make it look like sparkling magical snow. It looked beautiful until the wind picked up. The glitter migrated across the street and coated the neighbor's black luxury sedan. The car owner was livid, filing a complaint for vandalism. He claimed he took the car to the wash 3 times, but the craft herpes refused to come off. He sent her a bill for a professional detailing service to remove the sparkle from his life. 37. Placing red and green floodlights near a street corner seems like a festive idea, but it can go horribly wrong. One homeowner positioned his powerful colored spots right next to a stop sign. The result was that drivers kept confusing the glowing green house light for a green traffic signal and blowing right through the intersection. After 3 minor fender benders and a lot of honking, the city transportation department ordered him to unplug the traffic hazard before someone actually got hurt. 38. Animating your display brings it to life, but you have to check the mechanics. A mechanical buck and doe were set up to nod their heads gently. However, a strong wind knocked the doe over, and the buck kept moving back and forth in a very suggestive rhythm right behind her. A neighbor with young children filed an indecency complaint, claiming the reindeer were filming an adult nature documentary on the front lawn. The homeowner had to go out and separate the amorous pair. 39. Modern problems require modern complaints. A tech-savvy enthusiast installed 5,000 smart bulbs that all connected to the local Wi-Fi. The sheer amount of signal traffic jammed the network frequency for the entire cul-de-sac. His next-door neighbor, who worked from home, filed a complaint not about the lights themselves but about digital trespassing. He claimed the Christmas display was DOSing his router and preventing him from sending emails. The solution was creating a separate guest network just for Santa. 40. Striving for biblical accuracy, a man included live animals in his nativity scene, including a goat and 2 sheep he rented from a petting zoo. The animals were cute until they escaped their pen and ate the neighbor's prize-winning rose bushes. The neighbor didn't care about the cute baby Jesus. She filed a property damage report for destruction of botanical assets by holy livestock. She demanded the homeowner pay for the roses and the landscaping labor to replant them. 41. High-definition projectors are amazing, especially when playing a video of a crackling fireplace. One homeowner projected a massive, roaring fire loop onto his front bay window. From the street, it looked terrifyingly real. A panicked neighbor called the fire department, screaming that the living room was engulfed in flames. Firefighters kicked down the front door with axes, only to find the family watching TV. The neighbor tried to bill the city for her Good Samaritan effort, but the city billed her for the door. 42. A mysterious package on the porch can be scary these days. A well-meaning neighbor left a dense foil-wrapped fruitcake on the doorstep of the new couple next door as a welcome gift. The couple, suspicious of the heavy, unlabeled brick, called the police to report a suspicious device. The area was cordoned off until an officer bravely unwrapped the foil and identified the object as a dense loaf of candied fruit. The police report literally listed the item as potentially lethal dessert. 43. Inflatables look great when they are full of air, but during the day they are just puddles of nylon. A strict HOA president fined a resident for having garbage heaps on his lawn during daylight hours. He argued that the deflated Santa and snowman looked like piles of dirty laundry and lowered property values between the hours of 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. The homeowner was told he had to either keep them inflated 24/7 or go out and fold them nicely every single morning. 44. Powering a massive display takes juice, and one man didn't want to hike up his electric bill. He bought a loud, industrial diesel generator and ran it behind his bushes. The neighbor complained that his house smelled like a truck stop, and the noise sounded like a lawnmower that never stopped. He filed a nuisance suit for noise pollution and toxic fumes, stating that he couldn't enjoy his eggnog while choking on diesel exhaust. The judge agreed that Christmas shouldn't smell like a gas station. 45. Not everyone loves the holidays, and one man expressed it by spelling out Bea Humbug in 6-foot-tall bright white letters. A neighbor, who took Christmas very seriously, filed a formal complaint calling the sign hate speech against joy. She argued that the sign created a hostile neighborhood environment and was depressing the local children. The city attorney had to explain that being a Grinch is technically a protected form of free speech, much to the neighbor's horror. 46. A homeowner placed a life-sized Santa mannequin in his second-story window, looking out with binoculars. It was meant to look like Santa was checking who was naughty or nice. The woman next door, however, felt like she was being watched while she was in her bathroom. She called the police to report a peeping Tom, claiming the bearded man hadn't moved for 3 days. She was mortified when the police pointed a spotlight at the window and revealed it was just plastic. 47. Sometimes the complaint is about theft, but not the kind you think. A woman noticed her neighbor's display was an exact replica of her own, down to the placement of the nutcrackers. She filed a grievance with the community board for plagiarism of intellectual property. She claimed she had curated her design for years, and her neighbors simply copy-pasted her hard work. She demanded the board force the copycat to move a few reindeer around to avoid copyright infringement. 48. Icicle lights are a staple, but one man hung heavy, sharp, acrylic icicles that looked like glass daggers along the edge of his roof. The mail carrier actually filed a safety complaint, stating that he refused to deliver packages to the porch because he was afraid of being impaled if one fell. The homeowner argued they were plastic, but the post office sided with the carrier, marking the house as a hazardous delivery zone until the death cycles were removed. 49. The ultimate neighbor feud started when one man noticed an extension cord running from his outdoor outlet, under the fence, and into his neighbor's yard. The neighbor had been stealing electricity to power his massive inflatable village. When confronted, the thief argued that since the other guy had a better job, he was just spreading the wealth in the spirit of the season. The homeowner didn't see it as charity. He saw it as a crime and cut the cord with hedge trimmers. 50. In a crowded city street, parking is absolute gold. One resident parked a full-sized wooden sleigh in a prime street spot to reserve it for his holiday party guests. A neighbor circled the block for 40 minutes and finally snapped. He called the towing company, claiming an unregistered vehicle was abandoning the roadway. The tow truck driver actually showed up but refused to tow it because he didn't want to be the guy who towed Santa, leaving the angry neighbor to park 3 blocks away. 51. A cheerful homeowner put a sign in his yard that said, "Honk if you believe in Santa." It was cute for about 10 minutes. By 11 p.m., the neighbor with a newborn baby was ready to commit a felony. He filed a noise disturbance complaint, alleging the sign was inciting public disorder. The police agreed that encouraging traffic noise at midnight was a bad idea and made him change the sign to a silent "Wave if you believe." 52. One man made a giant scroll labeled "The Naughty List" and actually wrote the names of neighborhood kids who annoyed him on it. A furious mother saw her son's name, Timmy, listed under lawn trespasser. She threatened to sue for defamation of character and bullying. The homeowner argued it was just a festive deterrent, but the HOA forced him to erase the names to prevent a suburban civil war over who was actually naughty. 53. A prankster moved his 6-foot snowman a few inches closer to his neighbor's front door every single night. The neighbor, who lived alone, started losing her mind. She called the non-emergency line claiming she was being stalked by frozen water. She told the officer the snowman was watching her and moving on its own. The cops had to tell the prankster to stop gaslighting the poor woman before she took a flamethrower to his lawn. 54. Enthusiasts often broadcast music to a car radio station, but one guy picked a frequency that was already in use by a baby monitor. The neighbor next door was terrified when she heard a deep, demonic voice whispering, "Ho ho ho," coming from her infant's room at 2 a.m. After storming the nursery with a baseball bat, she realized it was just static interference from the light show. She filed a complaint, demanding he change his frequency or buy her therapy. 55. Taking decorations down late is one thing, but never taking them down is another. A resident in Florida kept his plastic Santa up through July, simply putting a Hawaiian shirt and sunglasses on him to adapt to the season. The HOA fined him for out-of-season decor. He argued it wasn't a Christmas decoration anymore, it was a summer solstice St. Nick. The board was not amused and threatened to foreclose if Santa didn't go on vacation. 56. A YouTuber thought it would be funny to wrap his entire single-story house in actual wrapping paper. He used hundreds of rolls. The neighbor called the fire marshal, calling the house a giant tinderbox waiting to spark. He argued that one stray ember from a chimney would turn the whole block into a bonfire. The fire marshal agreed it was a massive fire hazard and ordered the paper to be ripped down immediately, wasting 3 days of work. 57. A tech bro tried to deliver Christmas cards to his neighbors using a drone to be futuristic. The drone malfunctioned and got tangled in the neighbor's older lady's bouffant hairdo while she was gardening. She called the police for assault by robot. The drone operator had to come over with scissors and cut the device out of her hair while she screamed about the rise of the machines. He hand-delivered the rest of his cards after that. 58. A lazy decorator used duct tape instead of clips to hang lights on his stucco. In the middle of the night, the adhesive failed, and the entire string of heavy C9 bulbs crashed onto the neighbor's parked car. The neighbor woke up thinking someone was breaking his windshield. He filed a claim for the scratches and demanded the homeowner take a basic physics class before attempting to hang anything above gravity-prone objects again. 59. a woman set up a choir of antique Victorian dolls on her porch. They were admittedly creepy, with pale faces and dead eyes. The neighbor complained that the dolls were cursed objects and terrified her dog. She actually claimed that the dolls' heads turned to look at her when she walked by. She requested the HUA ban lifelike human effigies from porches, stating that her neighborhood was not the set of a horror movie. 60. A man projected the movie Die Hard on a loop on his garage door, claiming it is the ultimate Christmas movie. A neighbor with young kids complained about the violence and profanity visible from the street. She argued that John McClane crawling through a vent with a machine gun was not the holiday spirit her 3-year-old needed to see. The homeowner compromised by switching to Home Alone, which is technically just as violent but features a child. 61. A family used that spray-on fake snow on all their windows. A neighbor walking his dog complained that the chemical smell was wafting into the street and giving him a headache. He accused the family of releasing toxic aerosols into the atmosphere and contributing to the ozone layer's destruction. He actually knocked on their door and asked to see the material safety data sheet for the spray can before he would continue his walk. 62. Tired of package thieves, a homeowner rigged a bait package on his porch that detonated a glitter bomb and a loud siren when lifted. The problem was, the mailman moved it to make room for a real package. The siren went off, scaring the mailman half to death. The neighbor across the street called the cops, reporting an explosion. The homeowner was warned that booby-trapping property, even with glitter, is a legal gray area that terrifies civil servants. 63. Lighting is all about angles, and one homeowner got the geometry horribly wrong. He set up a spotlight behind a cardboard cutout of Santa, holding a sack of toys. However, the shadow it cast into the neighbor's bedroom window looked exactly like a large man holding a severed head. The terrified neighbor called 911 at 3 a.m., reporting an axe murderer in the yard. The police arrived, guns drawn, only to find a cardboard Saint Nick smiling innocently. 64. Spelling matters, especially with giant illuminated letters on the roof. A family intended to spell Santa in 5-foot glowing letters. Unfortunately, a windstorm rearranged the unsecured letters, and for 2 nights the roof brightly displayed Satan to the entire pious neighborhood. A local church group filed a complaint about devil worship in a residential zone. The homeowner claimed it was an act of God, or perhaps the wind, but he fixed it very quickly. 65. Modern neighborhood feuds are fought in the digital realm. A man named his Wi-Fi network Santa Lives Here, and his grumpy neighbor immediately changed his Wi-Fi name to Santa is Fake and Dad Buys the Toys. The parents of reading-age children were furious. They filed a harassment complaint with the internet service provider, claiming the neighbor was engaging in spoiler terrorism and ruining the magic of Christmas for every kid with an iPad within a 100-foot radius. 66. A homeowner decided to put a vintage solid oak sleigh on his roof to complete the look. The neighbor next door, who happened to be a structural engineer, did some quick math and realized the roof couldn't hold that much weight. He called the city inspector, not out of spite, but out of fear that the sleigh would crash through the roof and the resulting debris would slide onto his patio. He basically reported his neighbor for imminent gravitational disaster. 67. Hiring a character actor adds flair, but you need to check their references. A family hired a professional Grinch to stand in their yard and wave at cars. The actor took his method acting too seriously and started roasting the neighbors as they walked to their mailboxes. One neighbor filed a verbal assault complaint after the Grinch told her that her sweater was a crime against fashion and that her fruitcake tasted like regret. 68. When January rolls around, getting rid of the tree is a hassle. One man decided to give his dried-out Douglas fir a Viking funeral in his driveway. He set it on fire on a skateboard and rolled it toward the street. The neighbor didn't appreciate the flaming projectile rolling past his parked BMW. He called the fire department, reporting arson and reckless endangerment with a coniferous missile. The Viking was fined for an unauthorized burn pit. 69. The ultimate Christmas disaster happened when one man recreated the National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation light display with 25,000 incandescent bulbs. When he finally plugged in the main breaker, he didn't just dim the lights. He blew the transformer for the entire block right in the middle of a televised football game. The neighbors didn't cheer. They filed a class-action lawsuit for the power surge that fried their smart TVs and microwaves. It goes down in history as the night the lights went out in Georgia. So after all that, here's the real question. If you lived on this street, would you be the calm neighbor, the chaos generator, or the one calling the cops because Santa looked at you funny? Pick your role and justify it in the comments. I guarantee someone's going to argue with you. And if this video made you feel even slightly better about your own neighborhood, hit like and subscribe.